Greetings everyone, this is Jed Shlackman, and in this video I'll be speaking about what I call pseudo-spirituality, pseudo-science, and the subversion of the human mind. So when we say something is pseudo, we kind of have this idea that it's some type of false or fake version of something. And in the case of spirituality, what I'm referring to as pseudo-spirituality often involves some type of religious belief or organization where the fundamental concept of spirituality and spiritual connection has been distorted or tampered with in some way. And in that context, it's actually leading people away from a more full or true form of spirituality. And the same kind of idea applies with science, where pseudoscience would be something that on the surface might appear to be related to science or seeking knowledge, but in some way it distorts that, it misleads people, and it in some manner inhibits the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. So first we'll look at the pseudo-spirituality, which tends to involve religious belief systems. If we think of spirituality as us tuning into our own spiritual essence, our own existential nature as part of some greater spiritual source, we can see that that would involve our own personal experience. So as we seek to know and understand ourselves more, understand life more, and understand where this all comes from, the creative source or divine intelligence or God, whatever label we might give that, that's something that can't be confined to any particular doctrine or dogma, to any specific book or text. So once you have a doctrine, a dogma, a book, a text, a religion, you're putting some type of barrier on people's ability to process their own experience, to tune into their own spiritual connection. You may provide them some useful ideas, some valuable insights about things. You may teach them some helpful practices that they can use, but each person is unique and creation is infinite. So if you just try to limit things to a particular book or doctrine, you're not allowing the full expression of one's spirituality. And in many cases, those doctrines or writings contain distortions. They contain the limited perspectives from other people's experiences, or even some deliberate type of manipulation or distortion. So if we want to really go deeply into our own spirituality, into our own exploration of the infinite potential of self, then we don't want to confine ourselves to any particular religion, to any particular group or belief system, even though those might provide some useful resources for us as we proceed along our path. So it's not about judging them as good or bad or right or wrong. It's about seeing a larger context where those pseudo-spirituality types of systems are confining our spirit in some sense, not allowing us to fully explore who we are, to fully explore the nature of life and creation. Now that brings me to the other part of this discussion, which has to do with science. So in human society or civilization, we've come up with this concept of science, which is a search for knowledge. So if you're a scientist, you're someone who's seeking to gain more knowledge or to know or understand more about any phenomena you might perceive or encounter. There's been what's called the scientific method applied in the domain of science, which is sort of a step-by-step process to attempt to continually refine our knowledge and understanding. So we observe things, we measure things, we form hypotheses and theories about these things. We develop different types of experiments or ways of testing things to evaluate how accurate or not our hypotheses and theories might be. And our ability to measure and perceive things is never complete or absolute. So this is an ongoing open process where we can continue to refine our ideas and our knowledge, and that base of knowledge is never really complete. And as our ability to perceive and measure things continues to shift and expand, we often uncover or discover that our previous knowledge or beliefs about things are actually not accurate. They may have appeared to be so initially based on our limited ability to measure and perceive, but as our ability to perceive and understand things continues to grow, we often end up changing those beliefs. We develop new theories, more complete or more holistic understandings of whatever phenomena we may be observing. So in science, people often look at science as if it's a consensus about what people in the sciences have up until the current time come to believe. So people may think that if there's a particular theory that many people in a particular field or domain of science have come to accept as true, then that is ultimately true. That if you disagree with that, you're somehow unscientific. Yet, as I've mentioned, it's very common for scientific theories that seem to be correct to many people initially to later be disproven, to be discarded based on new evidence, expanded measurement, and so on. So we want to be careful about looking at science as a solid body of knowledge that is automatically true just because a lot of people in the sciences currently agree upon it. Science is meant to be open to change, to shifts in perspective and understanding. So when people talk about science deniers, they're often not really speaking of science deniers. They're speaking of people that may not agree with the current consensus in science. But whatever that consensus happens to be might not continue for eternity. That could change in the future, and the people who thought they had knowledge, that they were the ones on the side of science, so to speak, they may in the future be perceived as the ones who had a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of reality. So in that sense, science can become almost like a religion, a doctrine or dogma that people are attached to, that they assume is true. In this case, they assume it's true because the current ability of people in the sciences to measure things and form hypotheses has established a certain viewpoint about things. But we don't want to be confined to that. We don't want to assume that that's the be-all, end-all of knowledge or understanding, that that's entirely accurate. So the human mind is something that we want to keep more open to expand its understanding. If we're told by either people in religion or people in a field of science that their perspective, their information is an absolute truth that can't be refuted, that can't be debated or argued with in any way, then chances are our mind will be subverted in some way, because we'd be closing our mind to other information, other experiences, other ways perhaps of perceiving reality that might not have been applied previously. So I encourage each of you to keep your minds more open, more receptive to continuing to expand your understanding, to exploring your own experiences, using your own intellect and intuition, using all the ways that you have access to access information and to further develop your own perception. I hope that this discussion has given each of you some things to think about or ponder, some ideas on how you can expand your consciousness. For those that are interested in spirituality and holistic health and wellness, I invite you to view some more of my videos on these subjects. You can also visit my website, which is phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I'd like to wish each of you a wonderful day. Namaste.